Hey folks, Real Honesty with John Ritlin. I'm John Ritlin. This is the third part of my top 20 least favorite WCW wrestlers, where essentially it's pretty much going to be just what I've been doing before. Some of the rants might get a little more vicious, but I'm going to cover the last 8 in the video, and if it takes way too long, I might skip, over some big aspects of their careers. But really, it's going to just be me talking about why I don't really like these people. This could go 10 minutes, this could go 20, this could go 30 minutes. If it ends up going 30 minutes, trust me, I apologize in advance. But anyway, final 8, so here we go. Number 8, Disco Inferno. Disco wasn't a bad worker, but the gimmick, the gimmick was shit. And it was absolute shit. Now, I will give him credit for making it his own and doing the best he could with it. He is a former TV champion, shocking as that was. I remember actually watching. I did a 20-year reflection on the September 22nd, 1997 editions of Raw and Nitro, where Disco had actually beaten Alex Wright and become TV champion. But Disco had some good performances in the ring, but his gimmick was shit, and the fact that he was ever anything more than a mid-card jobber was ridiculous. He never belonged as anything else other than that. The fact that he even tried to become part of the NWO at one point, granted in 1998, 1999, the NWO was spiraling out of control. But Disco just always annoyed me. He's annoyed me since. Of course, he's part of... One thing in particular that he did was send out a tweet about guys taking picture. If a guy is at an indie show and sees a hot, female fan, take a picture and he'll shout him out on the podcast, because that's great. That kind of stuff. Look, there's nothing wrong with seeing beautiful female wrestling fans, but being that kind of creep and not saying, hey, do you mind if I take a picture? No, take a picture against her. Well, good job, Disco. I can see why you and Vince Russo are friends. You have about the same view on women. But Disco just realistically is, to me, he's a pest. And his time in NWA TNA was even more ridiculous. He really shouldn't have been wrestling, and he damn sure shouldn't have been on the creative staff. Because the guy just didn't have a damn clue what he was doing. Sorry, he didn't. Now, he had, like I said, he had some good performances in WCW. Him and Alex Wright were a decent team, but I always found Disco to be, quite frankly, annoying. That's really just what it comes down to. And now number 7, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Where, look, I'm sure Hacksaw Jim Duggan is a lovely man, a great guy. I'm sure he's a good-hearted human being. I'm sure he is. People have actually spoken very highly of him. And in interviews, he seems like a really nice guy. So this isn't me knocking him as a person. In fact, pretty much the only reason he ranks this high is because his WCW run was fucking terrible. He beat the likes of Steve Austin. I believe he beat DDP at some point. And he was in the company for how damn long? I think he was part of WCW still in 99 and 2000. It's like, what the hell? Already by that point, he was way past his prime. He'd been doing the same damn character since his days in WWE, WWF, whatever you want to call it. And really, it was annoying. It was just annoying in the fact that he just wasn't that great of a worker. He's a great brawler. I will say that much. You put him in brawling matches, he certainly is somebody that, that could carry himself there. And obviously he wouldn't be working as much now because of his age. But back when he went to WCW in 94 through, I believe, part of 2000, it was ridiculous. It wasn't good. It was just something. I never really enjoyed seeing Hacksaw in WCW. I don't blame him for going. He got paid well. And they put him in some decent matches and decent feuds, at least in the first couple of years. But realistically, he was just one of those guys that, that WCW took because it was one of Vince's guys. And again, this is not faulting the man himself. I just always got annoyed, especially when I saw him in WCW. He just didn't do anything for me. His character was past its prime, not really all that great. I just never really cared for watching Hacksaw in the ring. In fact, unless he's part of any of these shows that I happen to do, 20, 30-year reflections or whatever on, I kind of try to skip over his stuff because you've seen one match of his, you've seen it all. Now, his Mid-South stuff, pretty damn good. I will give him credit for that. Again, not a bad guy by any stretch of the imagination. Not a terrible worker. But just, I never enjoyed watching his stuff in WCW. I just never did, because I just never thought that, I just never really thought anything of him in WCW. That's just pretty much what it comes down to. And now we get to number 6, Brutus Beefcake. Look, again, Brutus Beefcake seems like a nice guy. WWE did a Where Are They Now thing. We talked about how he's gotten his life together and he survived that parasailing accident, which could have killed him and thankfully didn't. I mean, again, doesn't seem like a bad guy. Him and his wife seem happy together. He seems to be in WWE's good graces enough to where they did a piece on him, so that's really, really cool. And considering he was Hogan's best friend, or at least is one of Hogan's closest friends, and they did a piece on him, that's pretty damn cool. I will give them credit for that. That being said, I fucking hated his gimmicks. I fucking hated his gimmick. I hated the Bruce Barber Beefcake character. Hated it. Even as a kid, I hated it. Now, he seemed to be having fun with it, and that's great. People seem to pop for it, the cutting and strutting, the big, the big clippers and everything. Okay, it got over for a time. Then he had a parasailing accident, not his fault again, glad he's alive. And then his character was just blasé after that. Now, granted, he wasn't really able to take bumps and was only in the company back in like the ring in like 90, I think in like late 92, early 93 to like mid 93. And then when Hogan left, I think Beefcake left soon after. Beefcake left soon after. And then he went there and he was Brother Brudai. He was the Man with No Name. He was the Butcher. And I might be mixing up, the timeline of events here, but it's like when he was revealed to be the attacker at Halloween Havoc 94, like a masked guy that attacked Sting, even though I think Brutus Beefcake had come out there and like had accompanied Hogan to the ring, and they did this, and it was just such shit. It was such shit, and he was revealed to be, the man that was trying to get at Hulk Hogan, even though that was his best friend, and oh my god, it was ridiculous. And Kevin Sullivan had sent him there because they were starting to form the Dungeon of Doom, which Kevin Sullivan will make an appearance later on this countdown because the guy was a shit worker. But Beefcake, he's the Butcher, as part of probably the worst Starrcade main event ever. Hogan versus the Butcher. It was just bad. It was just bad. I don't fault Beefcake for being friends with Hogan. If he seemed to really be good friends with Hogan. And Hogan took care of him and made sure he had a job. And that's great. That's great. But that doesn't hide the fact that he had so many damn gimmicks and they were all terrible. Again, going back to Brother Brudai, the man with, the Butcher, the Man with No Name, Zodiac. I mean, where the Zodiac like gimmick might have actually been one of the worst ones, and there's another one that's way worse. But Zodiac was just absolute shit and just 100% trash. It was trash, but then again, it was part of the Dungeon of Doom, which, sorry, even though it had some great talent, John Tenta, Kamala at that point, still had his legs under him, and had the Faces of Fear, and I'm certainly not going to say that the Faces of Fear weren't really great talents and weren't, a great tag team, because I don't want Ming to kill me. And I'm also a fan of the Barbarian, and I think that his niece, Lady Tapa, I think can do very well. I believe she's his niece, if I remember right. But talking about Bruce Beefcake, he was a Zodiac, and then he was the Booty Man. I mean, it was a blatant ripoff of Brutus Beefcake. But instead of cutting and strutting, he was just shaking his ass in front of the camera, and I wonder why the fuck that didn't get over. I wonder why that gimmick didn't get over. Can't imagine. Oh yeah, because Brutus Beefcake was fucking terrible. And of course, he would hit the high knee. He would hit a knee drop, and it would be called the high knee because it's an ass joke. But Beefcake, my God, just absolutely, just terrible. And I mean, the Disciple might have actually been the best gimmick he had. I didn't realize at the time, even at 17 years old, that was Brutus Beefcake. I'm going to take a short break, and I'll be right back, folks. Okay, folks, short drink break, and I'm back. Thank you very much. And I will continue my rant on Brutus Beefcake. Again, nothing against the guy personally, but all his gimmicks were shit. just some of the worst damn gimmicks, and the only reason he was even in the company that long, not because he was a great worker, because at that point he wasn't a great worker. Now, I mean, he survived that parasite accident. Great things, great things were in store for him. Like maybe getting to live the rest of his life, because he certainly didn't deserve to go through that, and no one really does. But Brutus Beefcake was just he was just bad. I mean, the disciple gimmick, I think once that ran its course, he was gone from the company soon after that. He might have been backstage, but I don't think he made an appearances sometime after. I think Warrior wrote him off helped write him off on TV by making the disciple join the One Warrior Nation, even though there were two guys in it, further proving that Warrior couldn't do simple things like, do math or not be homophobic and racist like the piece of shit he was. Back to Bruce Beefcake, the guy had so many damn gimmicks and none of them were any good. Disciple's probably the best one, because at least he looked different. I will give him that much credit. He looked totally different. But yeah, Bruce Beefcake, it was just trash stuff. It trash gimmicks. Not a trash human being, trash gimmicks. Now we move on to number 5, Buff Bagwell. For being in the company for like 10 years or close to 10 years, how the fuck did this guy somehow get worse in the ring? Oh, I know, because he had the damn, he had such an ego about him, and he was such a mama's boy that his mama had to call JR and say that JR, that Buff wasn't feeling all that well. He had something. Whether that story is true or not, I'm going to side more with JR than I am with Buff Bagwell, who, this guy just was terrible. He barely had maybe a 3-star match at best. He wasn't any good. I mean, sure, he had a great look. I mean, it's like, that would certainly be, that's why I'm a little bit surprised WWE didn't try to do more stuff with him. And recognize that even with any attitude that he had, that guy had an impressive look. I think he was only 31 when WWE brought him over. Like, honestly, you could have gotten a few years out of him. Of course, Buff self-destructed on that. And now is doing being a male escort. Whatever floats your boat. The fact that he's a mid-40s male escort, though, shows how his priorities in life and how maybe he should have saved his money. Maybe he should have saved his damn money, and then that wouldn't have happened. But I can't think of anything good that he did in the ring. I can't do it. Him and Scotty Riggs were a great team. Like, he was great in tag teams, because it didn't show that his singles work was, well, as some people would say, the drizzle and shits. Again, had the ego, had the look, but unfortunately, I mean, had a little too much of the ego, and didn't have the wrestling ability to back it up. He teamed with the Patriot. He teamed with Too Cold Scorpio. He teamed with Scotty Riggs as the American Males, which they were a great team and have a very catchy, goofy theme, but Bagwell is one of those where you have to wonder, with 10 years of experience, how he somehow got worse as time went on. Still, you have to think that WWE could have used him. I mean, I don't blame them for not using him, but oh my God, this guy just was not. This guy was terrible. Again, I don't know that JR's story of JR getting rid of him because Buff's mother called him was true. But I don't think JR would be that much of a liar to really make that up. That'd be a pretty goofy, fabricated story. And even if it wasn't true, Buff still has not really shown himself to be the best person. Too Cold Scorpio doesn't speak very highly of him. But yeah, just looking at him strictly as a wrestler, I mean, I'm watching, I'm like, this guy somehow has regressed as a worker. Though when him and another guy that'll be on this countdown, Lex Luger, teamed up as Totally Buff, it fit because they were both egotistical and, loved their looks and everything. To be fair, Buff didn't seem to be the type to abuse women like Luger did. Buff was just in love with himself. But I just never saw the appeal of Buff Bagwell beyond the good points that I mentioned. And now we go to number 4, Kevin Sullivan, Kevin Sullivan had the worst goddamn finisher I've seen in my life. He double stomps on somebody, hops off and then covers him. Now, granted, a fat whale like him, jumping on somebody would certainly be something that I wouldn't want to endure. But Sullivan, if Sullivan could wrestle, he sure didn't show it. He could brawl. He could do a whole lot of brawling. He was into a lot of the hardcore blood and guts stuff. Whether it was in Florida, whether it was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, whether it was in WCW. I don't think he wrestled much after WCW. Him and Benoit had a retirement match in 97, so I think it was Bash at the Beach 97. But just Sullivan, genuinely one of the shittiest wrestlers I've seen in the ring. I mean, he had a great persona as far as being somebody that seemed satanic, even though he wasn't. Though there have been people that have said maybe he was. But just Sullivan's just one of those guys where every time I watched him, I'm just like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He just doesn't seem to. Or if you get him in a wrestling match, he doesn't know what he's doing. He'll claw at people. He'll beat people up. And I'm sure maybe he was a tough guy. He was an idiot for writing his, at the time, wife into a storyline with Chris Benoit. And that proved to be the undoing of his marriage. Brilliant job there, Sullivan. Such a smart guy. I mean, Sullivan did feud with Hogan for a bit when they did the whole Dungeon of Doom thing, but I genuinely always thought that Kevin Sullivan was shit. I just thought that Kevin Sullivan was just such a shit worker, and that stupid double stomp finisher. The guy just wasn't any good. And the guy was a terrible booker in WCW. Just terrible. I mean, was he as bad as Russo? No, I don't think anybody was as bad as Russo. Maybe except Jim Herd, but WCW at least recovered after Jim Herd. And recovered after Vince Russo. But yeah, Sullivan was not a good booker either. He was a genuinely shit wrestler, and he seemed like a shit booker. At least seemed like a shit booker in WCW. I don't know about any other company he worked for. But then, move on to number 3. Steve Mongo McMichael. One of the worst wrestling commentators ever. Maybe next to Rob Bartlett, Mark Madden, Josh Matthews, and I'm not necessarily putting them in that order. I would actually put Matthews above Mark Madden, and I might even put Josh Matthews above Rob Bartlett, because Josh Matthews has been doing it a whole lot longer and somehow seems to be shittier at his job each and every week. And he is shitty at his job. But Steve Mongo McMichael, terrible wrestling commentator. Every time he insulted Bobby the Brain Heenan, I'm like, dude, I know that it's a work, but how dare he even think that he can hold a fraction of a candle to what Bobby Heenan is now. And Bobby Heenan, sadly, is no longer with us. Bobby Heenan could come back. His ghost could do commentary better than Steve Mongo McMichael could ever do that in his prime. And he definitely could wrestle better than Steve Mongo McMichael could, because Steve Mongo McMichael was a fucking awful wrestler, an absolute dumpster fire in the ring. And then when he was at Bound for Glory 2008, he looked like he was the size of the entire Chicago offensive line for the 1985 team. The guy got to be a disgusting fat fuck. I mean, seriously, McMichael made commentary in 95 and 96, part of 96, totally awful. He just couldn't do anything, and he couldn't work in the ring at all. He couldn't. Sure, okay, he was part of the Horsemen. I guess Flair and Arn got a kick out of him. Okay, fine. Maybe Mongo was a likable guy backstage. I don't know. I know that Deborah made appearances on there because she was at the time married to Mongo, so you haven't to blame Mongo for bringing that horrible, horrible tramp onto wrestling TV, because Deborah was also garbage. She did not deserve to get beat up by Steve Austin. I want to put that out there right now. But Deborah was absolute garbage and an ugly, ugly looking woman. Sure, I'm not the best looking guy in the world, and I'll never claim to be. But for people to say Deborah was beautiful and attractive and everything, and Sable was really, really attractive and everything, okay, you guys watching, if you think that's the case, fine, great. I don't. I would rather I would actually rather have my skull cracked open than ever even think about sleeping with Deborah or Sable. They were dumpster fires. They were horrible. But going back to Steve Mongo McMichael, The fact that he was a former U.S. champion, it angers me more than it does Hacksaw Jim Duggan, because at least Hacksaw actually earned his stripes in the ring, whether I cared for his WCW run or not. Even at that diminished capacity, he was still a better worker. I think now Hacksaw could put on a better match than Mongo ever could. Mongo couldn't fucking work. He would nearly draw people on their damn heads. Oh, sure, he could hit some football moves because he's a former football player. We only mentioned that about 5 million times during every match that he was part of. And Mongo would always talk about his Super Bowl ring and all that stuff. It looks like the only Super Bowl shuffle that he's done, though, is to the buffet table. And yeah, okay, maybe I shouldn't do fat jokes and this kind of stuff. Mongo could have had a bunch of personal stuff happen to him. I don't know. I don't know if Mongo's a bad person, but he's a genuinely shit wrestling commentator, one of the worst ever. And he is one of the worst wrestlers ever. Because was he the absolute worst ever? No, there are other former football players that have gotten into wrestling that aren't very good. But for the push and TV time that he got, yeah, he's clearly the worst. Oh, he's the second worst of football players, former football players. They got into wrestling in WCW because one other's going to come up here. But Steve McMichael, generally a dog shit wrestler and commentator. And I have no respect for the work that he put in, because he clearly should. I do not know how much work he put into wrestling, but more would have helped. Number 2, Ernest Miller. Because Ernest Miller just wasn't interesting. I just never understood the appeal of Ernest Miller. I know why he was hired, because apparently I guess he was a 3-time World Karate Champion. I guess he was working with Eric's son Garrett, I think, if I remember reading right. If that's the case, okay, he's one of Bischoff. He became friends with Bischoff and got a job. That I don't fault him for. Maybe Ernest Miller is a nice guy. I don't know. But I can't think of too many things he did in the ring where it wasn't like, okay, this is literally like watching a guy that thinks that he's really good, try and get in the ring, fail miserably, had no charisma, couldn't talk for nothing, thought he could talk, and wasn't any good. Like, they had Ernest Miller team up with Glacier, which, all due respect to the guy playing Glacier, but God, that gimmick was over for about 2 minutes. And then Ernest Miller became more of a heel, and he was genuinely shit there. He has some feud with some guy named Jerry Flynn that is a blip on the radar. All due respect to the guy didn't seem like a bad worker, but that was a feud that went nowhere. Ernest Miller was also the commissioner at one point on WCW TV, and he was just such shit. And they did this thing with James Brown on a pay-per-view, and no one cared about any of this stuff. Just Ernest Miller was such shit. He was just awful. He was awful. He wasn't entertaining. He just wasn't entertaining at all. That's just really it. And people can say, I'm not entertaining. Look, I'm just a wrestling fan talking about this stuff. These guys get paid to go out there and be entertained. And Ernest Miller, if that's an example of entertainment, it's no wonder WCW went under. Actually, there's a lot of reasons why WCW went under. But now we go to number 1, Lex Luger. You guys are going to let me have this one, by the way. No, Lex was capable. Yes, Lex was capable of having some good matches. Good to great matches. But that's because people sold for him and made him look good. Guys like Flair, Sting, Steamboat, Pillman. Even Hogan, that match he had with Hogan right before Road Wild 97 wasn't particularly good. But Luger, and part of the reason I've ranted about this. I would encourage you guys to check out the top 3 of my top 40 least favorite wrestlers of all time. The spoiler alert: Luger's number 1, because I feel that Luger led inadvertently, or did completely lead to the death of Miss Elizabeth, and I hate Lex Luger for it. I hate him for it. And I hate him also for the fact that he never seemed to get it or get better in the ring. He never did. He was a great heel. Because he was easy to dislike. The whole narcissist gimmick fit him to a T, because really all he had was his freaking steroid look. And I know why he probably, got upset at Miss Elizabeth like he did, because his little steroid shrunken dick couldn't perform. And that's probably why he did that, because he's a small little man that had to beat up on women because he's a coward. Oh, but he's born again. He repented for that. No, he didn't. I read excerpts of his book. He never made any mention that he contributed anything like that, or never talked about the times that he abused Miss Elizabeth. Now look, I mean, if it's a confession book, at least confess that much stuff. But no, he painted Miss Elizabeth in the worst light, which I'm not saying Miss Elizabeth was a saint. But the simple fact that Luger wouldn't owe up to stuff that he did is proof as to why I think that he's such garbage, and it negates anything that he did in the ring. It's also, but going back to his stuff in the ring, anytime he got chopped or anytime he got hit, he sold it like he was getting shot. And then his legs would go out from under him, and now his legs legit have gone out from under him because karma's a bitch, isn't it, Lex? Not that Lex is ever going to watch this, but yeah, I get a little dark when it comes to Lex Luger because I have no respect for the guy. I have no respect for Lex Luger. I will not cry. I won't celebrate when he passes away. I won't. But given where he's going to go, Lex, Miss Elizabeth, very likely reunited with Randy Savage in heaven. You will not see Miss Elizabeth again because you ain't going to be in heaven, Lex. You're going to be in hell, where you belong, where people like you, people that murder inadvertently or whatever, and abuse women belong. That's where you belong, Lex. And that's why no one respects you. And people that do respect him, okay, fine, whatever. You respect him all you damn well want. But I don't respect Lex Luger. And if I ever did meet him in an autograph signing, I would tell him as much. I would say, I don't respect you because you killed Miss Elizabeth. And I'd flip him the damn bird and I'd leave. Because look, you can call me biased, all this stuff and everything. I'm not the only one that thinks this way. I'm not the only one that thinks this way about Lex Luger. Other people do too. There's a good amount of people that do. You guys don't have to. But just know I'm not the only one that thinks this way. And I don't respect Lex Luger for what he did in the ring. Had this stuff with Miss Elizabeth not happened, he still probably would be my least favorite WCW wrestler because he never appreciated it and he never earned the stuff that he got. He just kept getting money and kept getting pushes because of how he looked. But also generally he's just a shit person because he won't cop to what he did. But one day he will meet the person, he will meet his maker. And he will have to confess everything. And then he won't be up there. He'll be down in hell. This has gotten dark, but the whole point of this list was to talk about my least favorite wrestlers for a variety of reasons. WCW is a great wrestling company, though, and produced a lot of great matches, a lot of great rivalries, and a lot of great pay-per-views, and a lot of great talent. So let's just remember WCW for the good times, but also the fact that I really enjoyed doing this list. Yes, it went about 30 minutes. Again, I apologize to the beginning of this video. Thank you guys for watching to the end of this. So I will be finishing up the various countdowns that I'm doing, like my top 25 favorite tag teams ever. If you guys are watching this by the time I finish that list, then well, thank you guys for watching. And also top 25 favorite horror movies. And I'll be doing that as long as my voice holds up, like my voice is fading now. But anyway, folks, I just want to thank you very much for watching. My Twitter link is in the description. Also, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Who are some of your least favorite WCW wrestlers? Let me know. Let me know why. Let me know on Twitter. But this has been Real Honesty with John Ritlin. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.